Thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to get into the news review. I'll be joined shortly by development economist at the University for Development Studies, Dr. Michael Ayamga. But as always, we have a conversation on the prostate, that walnut-sized organ in your body, if you're a man, later on the show in terms of dieting, in terms of how to keep yourself healthy. But that's for later. And that's why we are also proffering for you Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, because they're offering you, if you're a man, especially if you're in your late 30s or early 40s. Nowadays, you don't have to hit it before you start checking, because there are people in their late 20s coming up with prostate issues. They're offering you prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility issues, there are so many of them, I can't even begin contemplating them. So many of our women wait till they have developed fibroids and all of that. Why? No one checked. No one knew what was happening. Before they could say Jack, there was trouble brewing. So why would you want to wait? Why don't you just get yourself screened from time to time? Even if it's once or twice a year, that's good enough for you. Again, the screening is for free at Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Here's where you can locate them. 1, right here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. 2, Kumasi Kronoma Bwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. 3, Takrady Anaji State if you find yourself in that part of the country. If you come back to Accra, there's Tema Community 22, there's Techiman Hanswa and Esiama Nzema. Are you ready to take their phone numbers? There are 2 of them. First one, 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. A very good morning to you, Dr. Ayamga, if you can hear me. All right, so we'll shortly be joined by development economist at the University for Development Studies, Dr. Michael Ayamga. But before we get into that, if you've looked at the figures, so to speak, let me just get my data. You would notice that in terms of indebtedness to China, Ghana is at top. We're perched at the very top when it comes to Africa. And that, for me, is quite a worrying consideration. You would look at the fact that we are perched at around $3.1 billion. It may not have accumulated in a day, which is true, but the question is, how did we get here? And with those resources that we borrowed, what did we use them for? That is always the point. In fact, this morning, I looked at someone's quote on social media, and I slightly disagreed. So the person put there, successful societies, in fact, it's not today, it was sent days ago, but I have the picture. Successful societies don't pray for their leaders to succeed. They hold them accountable. I'll rephrase that. You must still pray for the leaders. So I'll put it this way. Successful societies don't only pray for their leaders to succeed, because that is also important. They hold them accountable as well. And I'm going to put that out today on social media. Successful societies don't only pray for their leaders to succeed, they hold them accountable as well. How are we holding our leaders accountable? Because in the end, all this debt, I remember back then, before the year 2000 and right after, I guess with our debt today, we probably would be saying, debt and a teaching. And not just we, our progeny, posterity, even maybe our grandchildren will come and be paying these bills. Elizabeth Vahr reminded me yesterday of that situation in Norway with that fund. And I've spoken about it time without number, but yesterday she reminded me of it. Fund, since the 90s, I believe, for the generations to come from the oil wealth of Norway. So they are thinking of the future, so that even if that generation doesn't come to meet oil in their territory, they can still benefit. Here, even what we'll give to the future, we're consuming now. Now. We're destroying it now, even before the future comes. And we sit aloof and we say, oh, let's pray. Where are the Women's Aglow people? Are they still alive? Are they still there? Let's pray. Yeah, let's pray. I agree. I'm very Christian, very Catholic. Let's pray. But beyond the prayers, are we holding our leaders accountable? And are they delivering? I get very sad and even annoyed I speak to so many people this week. Just yesterday, I was speaking to someone. Many more people are contemplating leaving the country. Anyway, but there is some sort of good news because the latest inflationary figures point to a decline in inflation. It's dropped to around 26%, but don't celebrate yet, don't. Yesterday, I had an interaction with the government's statistician. And Prof, a very good morning to you. I'm so grateful that you're always available to us. That's one of the things I respect you for. I had a conversation, extensive one, with Professor Nim, and he took his time to walk me through some of what was happening. So yes, year on year, comparatively, inflation, we could say, has declined. But if you look at the month on month, because I put it to him looking at the 8% decline, 8% plus decline, and said, Prof, but I'm still going out there. I'm buying rice, I'm buying fish, I'm buying meat, I'm buying this, I'm buying that. I know your stock, the basket they use is over 300 items, 307 to be specific, and they go to about 40,000 plus, is it, outlets or the range of goods. And he explained to me that, yes, you're right. So year on year, it may have declined, but month on month, it has actually appreciated. And in fact, it's only about maybe 9% of the items in there that have actually decreased in price. All the others, about over 50%, have gone up. So even with this inflationary figure, you have to adjust it and understand properly what exactly you're saying. We've been joined now by Dr. Michael Ayamga. Doc, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben. It's nice to join you and happy to see you looking sharp.
Thank you very much. You're not doing badly either. Let's go straight for it because we have, I'm good I could put a smile on your face. We have limited time, a maximum of about 25, 30 minutes. So 2 quick questions. Our debt to China, I'm sure you've seen the profile. We're the highest in Africa in terms of indebtedness. But to be fair to this administration, all of this was not accrued just by the MPP. Let's be fair. Let's say what is right. Then 2, inflation has dipped to around 26%. Were you expecting that? And I was just mentioning that I had an interaction with the government statistician. And he mentioned to me that, listen, this is the year-on-year inflation we're looking at. That's the depreciation. But when you look at month on month, it's a different picture because you'll still go out there and some items are actually more expensive than they were 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago. What are the differences? Please, if you can, school our viewers on the dynamics.
Yes, thank you, Ben. The dynamics here has to do with the fact that on a monthly basis, if you compare this month, the month this time to the month last year, inflation figures have gone worse off. But maybe you're looking at this year versus the time last year, this time, the inflation has declined. So let me be honest here that any economist that sees a downward trend in inflation, regardless of the drivers, is happy, especially if you are living in this country where we have been under the knife of the fundamentals and trying to put body and soul together. And the government has been doing everything to have something to say. It's very heartwarming that at least we've had that big jump in decline in inflation. A month ago, some people were already skeptical and complaining about efforts to get people to pack these inflation figures. And I had that conversation with some colleagues when I visited Issa the other time, and somebody was telling me that we ought to be vigilant in terms of how we take in these numbers. But I'm happy. I don't want to go on the tangent of the clandestine and then also the conspiracy theories, but I think that I'm happy that the fundamentals, especially inflation, has seen that big jump. Is it significant? That is another question. If you still look at the general structure of the economy, we are still having a very, very weak currency, and we're still having a very huge import budget. And you expect that any small movement in the exchange market is going to increase, especially goods in the import basket, and you will have inflation probably tipping up again. So you also need to take into context that we are in December. Much of the demand for foreign currency and other things for Christmas would have happened, and that will ease a whole lot of pressure on the city. And I believe that once that happens, you will begin to see some stability. It's also rainy season, harvest season in most parts of Ghana, especially in northern Ghana, where we had the basket, and food prices are going down. So that is also a seasonal effect, I would say here. So much as we ought to celebrate that, we are seeing this effect on the forex, on the inflation. If we don't follow it up with discipline, especially on the expenditure side, and then give some confidence to domestic producers so that we could at least achieve some level of production and reduce the rates at which prices are increasing. This may not inure to our benefits, but I largely agree with you, and I want to be optimistic, cautiously though, that it looks like even though we are still in the middle of the maze, we are turning corners, and if we are, as we said, if we continue praying and we hold our leaders accountable, yes, we may finally be able to get see some light at the end of the tunnel. But this is just one isolated instance that doesn't mean we are out of the woods or we have turned the corner.
Thank you for that succinct analysis, Doc. Let's get into the papers now. District level elections, over 66,000 vie for Assembly Unit Committee slots. We've been talking about the local level elections for a while now. There's also Constituency Watch, Asin Central. We can feed nation with support. That's the constituents saying so. And of course, we know the Member of Parliament for that area, Kennedy Ohene Ejapong. EC to upload pink sheets on online portal. That story on page 16. Then 72,000 acre Accra land judgment. Occupants won't be dispossessed. That's according to legal counsel. That story is on page 26. I'll take a look. Many of you heard it yesterday on Joy 99.7 FM and right here on Joy News. And some of you have been worried. I'll break it down for you. Production of textbooks. Local publishers demand payment, and this is something I've been talking about, especially in respect of a 24-hour economy. I've always said, go to Newtown, right close to us here in Kokomlemle. It's a hub for printing. I've published books before, so I know a lot of these dealers, publishers, and where they are. We don't have proper publishers, so to speak, in Ghana in terms of what you would see abroad where someone, you pen the piece, they edit the manuscript, they do the proofreading and everything else. They do the legwork in terms of marketing and all that. I don't know whether that industry even exists in Ghana, but I'm talking about purely publishing the work, okay? Just publishing it, whether it's self-publishing or whatever it may be. How about if they had the work, okay, to do, demand and supply, they could operate. I know entities right here in Newtown that actually operate overnight a lot of the time in the year because they have printing work to be done. That is one industry we should be targeting. And yet a lot of the time, you would even have stuff from here, from our governments, ministries, agencies, and the rest. Where do we outsource them? To China. So we're building their economy, and ours is in the doldrums. It's in the quagmire. It's in the mud. And we expect it to develop, build each sector, and things will go well. There were promises about producing textbooks locally and all of that. Now, payment and so I asked them. Back page of the Daily Graphic, 2022, I beg your pardon, District League table. Korle-Klottey tops all. So I'll start from there. The Korle-Klottey Municipal Assembly, that's the Kokma in the Greater Accra region, has emerged with the overall best-ranked assembly in the country. According to the latest district league table, an initiative that ranks metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies, according to key development indicators, Kokma scored 85.8%, beating off competition from the other 260 districts. Now, the current performance by Kokma, which saw it topple the Tema Metropolitan Assembly from the first position, is an improvement over the 2021 ranking when the Assembly placed 6th. So the Special Advisor of the Sustainable Development Goals Advisory Unit at the President's Office, Dr. Felix Adoyobo, who presented the findings of the 2022 DLT in Accra yesterday, said Kokma emerged the best-ranked local assembly based on 18 indicators in 8 sectors. So you look at the top 10. 3 MMDAs from the Greater Accra region made it to the top 10 on the league table, while the region also emerged as the overall best. The 2 other MMDAs in Greater Accra which made the top 10 were the Ayawaso West Municipal Assembly, that's the ALMA, and the Tema Metropolitan Assembly, that's the TMA. They scored 79.7% and 78.6% respectively. Then, of course, there were some that did not fare too well, but of course you can get the details from the full ranking. But let me get to the front page now. The Ghana Publishers Association has called on the government to release the remaining 80% of contract sums owed members for producing textbooks for primary schools. The association said that would reduce further liabilities its members were saddled with. The president of the GPA, Asari Kuredu Yamwa, said at the 47th annual general meeting of the association in Accra yesterday that only about 20% of the contract sum had been paid in August this year. Quoting him, he says, "The contracted publishers and the GPA are urging the Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, to release the remaining 80% now." The president of the GPA said. The event was on the theme, Book Procurement in Ghana, Resolving Challenges for Industrial Growth. But just to give you a bit of context to this before I wrap. In 2021, the government ceded 100% of the printing of textbooks for pupils in basic schools to local printers. For pre-qualification, all local publishers were directed to present their documents, which included signed contracts with local printers. The Minister of Education warned that publishers without agreements with local printers would not be considered in the offer. So they were boxed into a corner. Use local printers. For a start, the government said the textbooks had to be printed. They would cover kindergarten to primary 6. And then in June last year, 5 local printers subsequently commenced the printing of government textbooks for basic schools under the new curriculum. The printers are GPAC Limited, a subsidiary of the Graphic Communications Group Limited, the Back Press, Appointed Time Printing Limited, JK Industries Limited, and SecPrint Limited. The printers, which secured the printing contracts, had 3 months to complete the jobs and a month to deliver the books to the schools. 3 months to complete, a month to deliver. 4 months in total. The government subsequently took custody of the first batch of textbooks from Appointed Time Printing in July last year. Following the delay in the payment for work done, the publishers appealed to the government to honor its part of the agreement since it was affecting their operations. And since that time, it's been about trying to recover. What are your thoughts on these 2 matters before I move on to the next ones? So, District League table, Korle-Klottey on top, and textbooks, education, as always. Get fund, you are capping it, using our money where it shouldn't be used. Now, even the textbooks, we can't pay for them. What are your quick thoughts, Dr. Ayamga?
Yeah, thank you. For the districts, my good friend Anato Atta has been working very hard. Most of the times when we meet, we see how he's trying to get districts performing, even with the meager resources they are having. So I'm happy that we are trying to find a basis for comparing these districts. But I still likely think that some are better off by virtue of their location and economic activity in their areas. Some, like where I am coming from, in Zuarungu, where economic activity is very limited and we are depending on the district assembly common funds and other donors to be able to implement the agenda. So you realize that you cannot actually compare or analyze their performance since they are mostly constrained. And then given that many of these funds have been in arrears over the years, and when you get to the assemblies, virtually nothing is happening. I'm not surprised that the top 10 are in areas where you have other internally generated funds from economic activity high. So yes, we want to commend the approach, but I think that it's an uneven platform to compare performance of districts. But Kwale, I am beginning to think that at least if you go through the area, it's very close to where our guest house is, and I stayed there, and I realized that there's been a lot going on in terms of at least pretending to get the place clean and to unchoke some of the drains here and there. So I'm not surprised that they are coming on top. But having said so, I believe that we must find a very effective, efficient, and uniform way of assessing districts so that the monies they have at their disposal doesn't unnecessarily give some the advantage. That's what I would say. On the issues of publishers, I feel really bad that we, at this point in time, not doing everything it would take to give domestic industries the edge. And under this crippling economy and the cost of borrowing increasing every day, it is unfathomable to even imagine that after companies and publishers have procured resources to produce textbooks for our education system, we are not paying them. And I think that the Minister of Education is becoming very notorious for not honoring his parts of the bargain. It is not only people in publishing that it is disappointing. There are so many people. I can even tell you on authority that last week when I was in Germany and I had a meeting at the German Academic Exchange Services, I got to realize that the Minister of Education failed to hold his end of the bargain of about $1 million, and that is actually affecting what we want to agree with the DAD to support tertiary education. So you realize that anytime you enter into these agreements and you don't allow them to come into fruition, you more or less put lives at risk. These publishers have to pay their workers. They have to pay off loans that they have procured to publish. And if we're having an education system that has consistently been dealing without steady supply of learning material, the only reasonable thing to do is to ensure that you are continuously resourcing the local printing sector so that they can support education. This is what we do, and if we don't pay them, the next time you hear the contract is gone to China because they'll say that China is ready to deliver. But we are not doing our part to ensure that the local printing industry is vibrant. It's a big industry everywhere, employs a lot of people, ensures that at least when it comes to teaching and learning material, you have a steady supply. It is only in this place that paying for textbooks is not at the front burner of the Ghana Education Service. It's kind of surprising. And it's not at least some small amount that remains, 80%. And you are asking yourself, how can a business survive when it is owed up to 80% by the government of the country? I think that the Minister of Education needs to look forward. Everybody, it doesn't matter which sector you are, the inability of the Minister of Education to hold on it by, be there even students on scholarship, they are facing challenges because we say we will pay and we have not paid. So if the Minister of Education and the directors are listening, I think that it is an issue of urgency. It is an issue of patriotism. It is important that we don't put the lives of our future generation in peril by not actually holding up this bargain, because we are going to cripple businesses, jobs will be lost, and families are going to suffer.
Well, thank you for those thoughts. Let's quickly wrap with the Daily Graphic and move on. District level elections, over 66,000 vie for assembly and unit committee slots. Now, more than 66,000 people are vying for assembly and unit committee positions in the upcoming district level elections slated for Tuesday, December 19 this year. Statistics sourced from the Electoral Commission indicate that the contestants are made up of 18,755 assembly member candidates and 47,502 unit assembly candidates or unit committee member candidates, bringing the number to 66,257 candidates. They will be seeking election in 6,215 electoral areas across the 216 metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. Just to add to that, we do know that the numbers have been pretty low over the years, sometimes dipping below 30%. The Electoral Commission says it is optimistic that this time would hit 50% plus. We're hoping for that. Again, there's talk about inflation. We spoke about it earlier, dropping to 26.4% in November. And that was from 35.2% in October 2023. But we've broken down for you the year on year and the month on month, so don't get it twisted. But the other story I want us to quickly look at, 72,000 acre land judgment. Occupants won't be dispossessed. Now, people who have bought land in the 70 areas where the Supreme Court judgment affected are not to be dispossessed. Such people, especially those who bought the land from the Numo Mashi family of Tishi, are now to go into new agreements with the relevant authorities in those areas. The lawyer who led the Boy Stool and 13 others to win the case, who did not want to be named, explained the import of the Supreme Court judgment that declared the Numo Mashi family of Tishi in the Greater Accra region as unable to hold themselves as owners of the over 72,000 acres of land. He told the Daily Graphic that the new owners would now arrange a tenancy agreement with those currently occupying the land. He also said, following the judgment, the Boy Stool, owners of 543 acres of the land that had been a subject of litigation for over 40 years, had written to the Lands Commission in a bid to execute the Supreme Court judgment, which directed the Commission to expunge all registration and certificates issued to the Numo Mashi family of Tishi in respect of the 72,000 acres. Now, there's actually a cluster of families in there. And the question is, moving forward, some demands will be made on these people. How to avoid further payment and repayment, because they will not be dispossessed, but some exchanges will happen, monetary exchanges and ownership exchanges, and all of that are going to happen. We just want a situation where maybe no one comes and, oh, you've paid to this family. I'm not talking about the Numo Mashi family. In this Boy Stool, okay, it's a number of families. You don't pay to this one, and this one comes and says, oh, actually, we are the one you're supposed to pay to, and all of that. Those are some of the concerns people have had. Did you have any quick take on this before we move on, Doc?
Yes, it's worrying. When I read the judgment, I was particularly scared. At least being someone who has been working on land, I think that our, let me call it, confused land management and land laws make it very difficult for people to buy land, be secure that they've acquired lands that they can put up infrastructure, put up their businesses and be able to. Now, what this has done is it opens the door for every other thing. Their lawyers can say they are not going to pay, but that is rather optimistic if you ask me. They may tell you they are not going to sell the land to you again, but going to arrange a new lease is going to come at a very significant cost that it may even mean buying it again. And I feel that maybe there should have been some further clarification, so insist that the new owners go after the old owners to get whatever proceeds they can get from the sale of the land, rather than opening a new front for negotiations. Negotiations is going to cost families, and you can be sure that in Accra, the demand for land is so high that people who have properties on these lands may be forced to make new payments or even pay much, much more than they did for the pieces of land. It is going to be, you have the option to enter a new agreement, and if you can, then maybe you may be dispossessed. So me sitting here, I see that there may be some dispossessions along the way if people don't succeed in paying the new demands. It's not going to be sale, but it will come in the forms of other fees and other forms of engagement. And whether you like it or not, it is going to affect the occupants of the land at the end of the day. I don't think that there is enough room here to protect them. And I am very, very worried.
For those of you who are trying to join the live stream, both for the news and the news review, who can't do so, I believe there are some technical glitches. Our sincere apologies to you. I cannot find it myself, so I understand your plight. Do be patient with us. Please bear with us. We'll try to remedy the situation. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, towards accident-free Yuletide, will deal with reckless drivers. Transport operators warn. Inflation falls to 26.4% in November. $200 million project to curb Accra perennial flooding takes off. $600 million prestige project to enhance Kotoka International Airport skyline launched. And on the back page, $2 million project to improve electricity regulation in West Africa launched as well. Okay. And there's Play Ghana campaign to promote local music comes alive. As for the bit about perennial flooding, I don't know, but let me just bring the story through. So it says, the Minister of Works and Housing, Francis Asensubwachi, yesterday cut a sod to commence a $200 million World Bank-funded project aimed at curbing flooding in communities along the Odo River Basin. The first phase of the project involves the development of primary and secondary drains, access roads, solid waste management facilities, and the extension of security lights and water supply networks at Alogboshi in the Okaikwe North Municipality. This is not the market area. This is a different area. Similar infrastructure will be developed in the coming weeks at Akwetiman and Nima, the remaining two beneficiary flood-prone low-income settlements under the Greater Accra Resilient and Integrated Development Project. That is the Garrett Project. To the World Bank, I'll just say, keep your eyes on the ground and your eyes on the money so that we get value for it. That's all I will say. That's the bit there. The Daily Guide. Hello World gives 60 computers to schools. Insights from Bank of Ghana governor unpacking pre-COVID stability and post-COVID crisis. Election 2024. EC to display results on website. Cannabis, not we. MPs divided over legislation. And John Bwedu takes over SIGA. All of that in there. And I think that's where I'm going to cap it off so that you can give your responses and then we can wrap. So John Bwedu is the acting Director General of SIGA. There's also Cannabis, not we. MPs in Parliament divided over legislation. The EC says it will display electoral results on website live. That is in 2024, not those district level elections. And then flooding in Accra, $200 million project takes off. World Bank, and I'm just saying they should keep their eyes on the ball. Any final words for us, maybe in a minute or maximum two, Dr. Ayamga?
Yes, let me talk a little bit on the flooding, because that is something that hits all of us anytime it rains. And you look at the flooding along the Odo River and you will say that it's an issue of we not wanting to fix the problem, not an issue of resources. And that has been the problem of the World Bank.
Right.
They throw resources at everything and expecting results. And you can't count the number of times funds have been allocated to dredge the Odo River to deal with the flooding in that area. And some of the times you wonder what has gone on. We all know that the reason for the flooding goes beyond choke gutters to mostly the settlement patterns and other things. And anytime somebody wants to do something, you have backdoor negotiations, backdoor pressures brought to bear. And the next day, you see that all those structures that are supposed to give way for us to be able to manage the flow of water when it runs are still standing there. So I'm not going to show any optimism as far as this is concerned. We'll spend this 200 million, we'll spend it very well, we'll account for it properly, and then we'll still have flooded. That one I can guarantee you, because what is required to deal with the flooding issue goes beyond an issue of money. It is issue of political will and the willingness to do what it takes, rather than we not having the resources. On the EC, it's fine. EC has always tried to display results on its website. Only that on election day, when you go there, there are no updates. On election day, it gets clocked. Everybody wants to see the results, so you have the system overwhelmed, and nothing seems to be happening. And I don't want to go on the other side that to think of whether their systems are secure enough to be able to protect the integrity of this thing. So it's good to have the EC say it's going to project the results live. I'm very certain that on election day, we'll be sitting here 3 days after elections, and the EC have not updated its website. It has been a familiar story. I also want to wonder whether this has been discussed with the various political parties, and at IPAC there has been agreement that this is the best way to go. I think that the EC ought to be more engaging in this in the run-up to the 2024 elections, rather than sometimes just take these decisions and put them up there. You need to prepare both the citizens and also the parties for such a system, because they are stakeholders. I don't know the extent to which the EC has prepared parties and the discussion that has gone on for this. But anything that will make the elections more credible and transparent, we are all for it. Just that I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm very sure that on the elections, the EC is going to be able to do this.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ayamga, for joining us this morning. Dr. Michael Ayamga is a development economist at the University for Development Studies. Before we bring you Prime Take, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, helping us to bring you this segment every week a day. And of course, today is no exception. Now, they're offering you free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Here's where you can locate them. Here in the Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. There's Kumasi Krodoma Boy here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa, and Esiama Nzama. If you'd like to call them, their numbers are 0244 867 068. There's also 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be sharing with you my blunt thoughts as always today. This will be after Prime Take. I'll be taking a look at the Office of the Special Prosecutor. I'll be talking a bit about China's debt and the exodus of some of our health workers. All of that will be on the table. But for now, on Prime Take with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, today he interacts with former Black Stars goalie Fatau Dauda. Remember him? He is now the goalkeepers trainer of the Sudanese national team. Enjoy the conversation.